Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I'm eating a very good breakfast right now, but I just mulling over something that I think makes sense in regard to a James Harden trade. I don't know who says no to this. I don't know who says yes to it. It's fresh out of my skull. Nobody's rumoring this. I'm just saying some crap. Take it as such. To the Spurs, I'd send James Harden for Kelden Johnson and maybe Reggie Bullock. I know Reggie Bullock was just traded from Dallas to San Antonio, so I don't know if he would be eligible to be traded. And one could consider James Harden being worth more than what these players bring to the table. Reggie Bullock being on a 1-year deal expiring, of course, and Kelden Johnson on a 4-year deal, which is what it would intrigue me if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers. Kelden Johnson on, I think it was like, I wish I would have retained the thought, under $30 million for 4 years. I think that's a good piece to bring to you if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, trying to make sense of what your roster could potentially be. A piece that you can see yourself being pleased with at that price, because you know he can ball, even though he had a bad year last year. I think that was to help steer them toward the tank that ultimately landed in Victor Wembanyama. And I also think that San Antonio could use the addition by subtraction with their small forward position, because they do have some guys that got to get some minutes forward with their forwards. In Malachi Branham, Sohan, McDermott, obviously Blake Wesley's back there. Champagne showed a lot of pop in the or Champagny, I think is how you say that, Champagny. He showed a lot of pop in the summer league. So you just got a lot of forwards there that you would like to give minutes to, and Kelden Johnson's one of them who you've paid, but it's an attractive contract that you can maybe push out the door and maybe give yourself an upgrade in a guy like James Harden, who's also expiring, who would then give you $35 million worth of cap space at the end of this year, for which you can add to Wembanyama year 2, maybe re-sign James Harden at a reasonable price for you, or just let him walk if that's what makes you feel better. But ultimately, moving on from Kelden Johnson, I think frees up that cap space. You don't need him on a 4-year deal, in my mind, with so many upside small forwards in place that ultimately could potentially be better than him. Malachi Branham's a player that I believe they should probably prioritize at that small forward position with what I saw last year. Kelden Johnson's a guy who, at that price for San Antonio, is a role player. I want that money. I want that money because I know I need to keep Wembanyama in a very good space. Now, one could argue Kelden Johnson is a really good player, and maybe you want to extract someone else like Doug McDermott or something like that. But it's not about necessarily me needing to get rid of Kelden Johnson at all. It's about me seeing the plus in bringing in James Harden for a year for Wembanyama's rookie season, and ultimately the $35 million to come off the cap when he expires at the end of this season. And so I just like the overall upgrade in the image of what Wembanyama's going to be playing with. And I also like the addition of bringing James Harden, even though some would argue this, and I can see why bringing him toward young players that need to develop probably ain't the right idea, because he usually kicks his way out of any situation that he does not like. But I don't think he would, in theory, dislike the situation, because he is a facilitator now who has plenty of offensive talent that he can get his assists off of. Obviously, the biggest target in Wembanyama, and he's just played with Joel Embiid. One would argue he may still want to play with an elite big. Now, I could argue he may want to go somewhere like OKC as well for that same reason, but I could argue even more so that OKC shouldn't be interested in a trade for James Harden. But San Antonio possibly should. They need to upgrade in their overall talent surrounding Wembanyama. You want to make that place as attractive as possible to keep that kid from dreaming about anything other than being with you. And it seems like he's very excited about being there. Maybe he would not want James Harden on his team. Who knows? And if he doesn't, I would definitely not do this. But ultimately, I think bringing James Harden to San Antonio could be a plus because of the contract. $35 million off the books. I can do a lot with that next year. And a 1-year season of Wembanyama can make it so that guys who are in free agency next year may get a look at him and say, yo, I want to come to San Antonio. There's their money right there. So I like it. You know what I mean? I'm not in love with Kelden Johnson on a 4-year deal with the San Antonio Spurs in this situation, but I don't necessarily dislike it if they can just free up some small forwards who can help make it so that they have more opportunities for all of those upside guys. I need Sohan on the floor for his minutes. As I said, Malachi needs his minutes. Wesley's ready. You can clearly see he's in a physical space where he's ready to take on some minutes as well. Needs to develop. And, of course, Sissoko is also in place as well at the forward position. They just got a logjam, man. And Kelden Johnson's probably one of the contracts in this league that people would be looking like saying, you know what, that's affordable. That's something I can retrade if I'm Philadelphia as well. If for some reason I don't like Kelden Johnson, for me, him at 4 years, under $30 million at his age, that's not the worst contract in the world. It should be easily movable. Now, maybe that keeps San Antonio from wanting to move it themselves in this deal, especially if they don't want James Harden and the headaches that could come with him. But I just don't think he would have too many objections to going to San Antonio, since he played a lot of time in Houston. I'm pretty sure going to Texas in any capacity isn't the worst thing in the world for him. And also, I just think that's an exciting new situation for James Harden to jump into, to continue having a similar role as one he just had, with a young team that I think would ultimately be a breath of fresh air coming out of a situation like this, and an opportunity for him, if he plays as well as he's capable of playing, to get re-up at a reasonable amount with the franchise he's with. Because if he blows their socks off in San Antonio, maybe they just go ahead and re-sign him, and he slots in more fluently to their roster as a guard who can play the 2 and the 1 than Kelden Johnson being a logjam at that small forward, taken away from the minutes of these other players I've already mentioned. So this is why I do this deal if I'm San Antonio. And if I'm Philadelphia, Kelden Johnson on a 4-year deal at that price is right for me. It's a good chance I'm going to lose Tobias Harris. He's expiring as well at $35 million. So it's a dang good chance I'm going to need to re-up my small forward positions. There are more small forwards in this league, but it's not as many as good as him on that price that you can slot in as your starting small forward for the next 4 years after all of this goes down. And he's also a very tradable piece that you can have in the event you need to move Joel Embiid. You got another attractive quality asset in place that is not going to be someone that you have to try to find in free agency this year once all this stuff comes off your books and you find out your reputation ain't very good, because nobody wants to go to Philadelphia right now, especially post Joel Embiid. Kelden Johnson's on the 4-year deal. I ain't got to worry about that. So that's another reason why I do this if I'm Philadelphia. So it makes all the sense in the world for both teams. I don't think either player should object to this. Kelden should look for a fresh start next to Tyrese Maxey. It looks good. If they do move Joel Embiid, whoever they bring with him, Joel Embiid's going to be a hell of a return. It's Kelden Johnson, it's Tyrese Maxey, and that return, plus whatever cap space is free from Tobias coming off the books, James coming off the books, and you got a lot of cap space. So Philadelphia's in a good position to rebuild. I think Kelden Johnson is proven that he can drive a tank, for which you should want to do if you're the Philadelphia 76ers and then rebuilding. So all of this makes sense. All of this makes sense. Unless James Harden just says, nah, if I go to San Antonio, I'm not going to want to play. That could throw a monkey wrench and everything. But I don't think he does that. Nobody's going to do that, in my opinion, because Wembanyama's right there. And Wembanyama is somebody you definitely want to play with, as somebody who's going to have a lot of nationally televised games. And for a guy who's trying to get his contract, that's exactly the type of situation you want if you're James Harden. So that is pretty much the thought I got to say, man. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching.